Shonen anime isn't just punches and power-ups, it's deep, with themes like loss, loneliness, purpose, and identity. It's why fans tear up when a mentor dies, or a character finally achieves their dream. Unless, of course, you're watching One Punch Man. One Punch Man is amazing because it mocks the shonen genre while also digging deeper than many of the shows it parodies. It's sharp, hilarious, and quietly profound. A rare combo that makes for one of the smartest anime in its genre. Not only that, it had everything going for it. Insane animation, hype yet silly visuals, and a soundtrack that rivals Beethoven's Sixth Symphony. But let's rewind to fall 2015. Nobody really knew what to expect from One Punch Man, at least among the anime audience. Made by an anonymous creator with wonky art, but surprisingly incredible writing. And suddenly, thanks to the dream team of animators and artists that produced season 1, it exploded into a full-blown cultural moment that for its time helped push anime to the mainstream. The show hit the anime scene like a meteor. Overnight, Saitama memes were everywhere. Became iconic. Anime fans and non-anime fans alike were hooked. The anime had hit the mainstream, and it wasn't just because of the fights, though those were good and very satisfying. It was because the show felt new. Saitama wasn't trying to be the best hero or earn anyone's respect. He didn't really care about respect, and he had all the power he would ever need, but because of that, he felt nothing. The twist, the emptiness, was the hook. It resonated with viewers and leaned into its comedy. Where shonen anime are about the climb, One Punch Man is about what happens after you reach the summit. And it turns out, it's pretty lonely up there. Let's be real, season 1 was a visual masterclass. The animation was handled by Madhouse, a studio that doesn't just animate fights, they make them feel like events. Like every punch and movement has a purpose, and that one punch that hits at the right moment is history being made. These are people who brought us Hajime no Ippo, Hunter x Hunter, Death Note, Monster, and Black Lagoon. We have seen what they can do, and that was quality, tone, and good animation. And that's exactly what season 1 of One Punch Man did. Every battle, whether it was Saitama one-shotting a kaiju or Genos melting a mountain, it looked and felt characterized. It felt interesting and new, much better than whatever crap Disney was working on that year. And the facial expressions, faces twisted with emotion, the camera angles whipped around like live action shots. There was impact in every frame. And going back to the character animation, the comedy landed so much harder because of the reactions that our characters go through. They were so well timed. The satire hit deeper because the show looked better than what it was mocking. It's like someone wrote a love letter to shonen while also burning the note at both ends. The first season of One Punch Man follows Saitama, an ordinary man who trained so hard he went bald and became unimaginably powerful, able to defeat any enemy with a single punch. However, his overwhelming strength leaves him bored and emotionally unfulfilled. However, the villain and monsters he took down didn't grant him any recognition. This, tied together with his unfulfillment of a true challenge, left him a ghost. This strength, however, gained him the attention of Genos, a seriously highly disciplined cyborg hero. Genos' backstory reveals that his family and hometown were destroyed by a rogue cyborg. He was saved, rebuilt by a scientist named Dr. Cusco, who gave him a powerful cybernetic body that looks slick as hell. That metal sheen, my brother. Genos seeks vengeance and hopes to grow stronger by becoming Saitama's disciple. Surely someone so powerful can teach him a thing or two. The two are both unregistered heroes at the start of the story, and a large part of the first season is the two of them getting registered, becoming real heroes with the Hero Association. The Hero Association is a formal organization created to protect civilians from monsters, villains, and natural disasters. It serves as a central governing body for the professional heroes. Heroes are also ranked in 4 classes, based on their performance, strength, and, in some cases, public popularity. These ranks are displayed alphabetically going backwards from C to A and then S at the end. To become a professional hero, individuals must take an entrance exam, which includes a written test and a physical fitness exam. 2, they have to get evaluated evaluated and assigned an initial class based on said performance. For example, Genos took the test and immediately went to S rank. However, if you score low in one of the tests like Saitama did, you will get C rank. If you're in C class, where inactivity will result in you leaving the hero program, you get fired. That should be enough for you to get the idea of what the show's story has to offer, but there's so much more. And you already know this soundtrack goes so fucking hard. From the first notes of The Hero by Jam Project, you know you're in for something ridiculous yet powerful. And throughout the season, the OST delivers banger after banger. Explosive guitar riffs during some fights, soft, haunting melodies in quieter scenes. The music elevates everything. It makes even Saitama's bored monologues feel somewhat profound. And Genos' cringe but drastic speeches feel 10 times more intense at times, until they use the music to revert expectations and make a joke that pays off all the more. But let's give credit where credit is due. One Punch Man was created by a guy who literally went by the name One. Just one. He posted original webcomics online for free, and despite the rough art, the writing struck a chord, as I said earlier. It was smart, funny, and at times philosophical, in a way that caught people off guard. Then came the manga adaptation, not the same thing. Murata's redraws brought the story to the world stage with insane detail and something that is really personally important to me in a manga, easily understandable movement. The anime took it one step further, combining said visuals and everything from before with world-class animators. Captured everything I've mentioned so far, bone-crushing action and the external themes perfectly. This wasn't just a shonen, it wasn't just a parody, it was a reimagining of what shonen could be. It made fun of the genre because it understood it better than most. And this was reflected in the sales. The first Blu-ray DVD sold approximately 8,865 copies, reflecting strong demand and enthusiasm for the anime. The high-quality adaptation contributed significantly to the manga's popularity. By June 2017, the manga had sold 13 million copies in print. This number grew to 20 million copies in 2019, and by April 2020, this series had sold over 30 million copies worldwide, solidifying it as a major franchise in modern shonen. However, after season 1, the unthinkable happened. Season 2 of One Punch Man wasn't just a step down, it felt like a betrayal. After the legendary first season, this fell short. Not just in one area, but in every single area. Instead of a strong follow-up to the biggest anime of the year, possibly of all time to this point, what we got was a lifeless continuation that looked, sounded, and felt like a shell of its former self. This wasn't just a disappointing sequel. It was the moment One Punch Man lost its shine, and it's standing as one of the most iconic anime of the decade. It looked so bad. Gone was Madhouse. Gone was the wild camera movements and dynamic choreography. That cinematic presentation, gone. Instead, Animation Studio JC's staff stepped in, and it was painfully obvious they were not prepared. JC are genuinely a very competent studio, all in all. They have produced many anime that have done very well, that care, and with the attention to detail that made it respective of the manga and show, and helped those shows stand out. However, while this attention to detail is seen in Bakuman, Konosuba, and even though it hurts me to say Food Wars, they are not strangers to criticism. Way of the House Husband was criticized for its lack of animation, but personally, in that case, it didn't bother me too much. Rather, I felt it lent to the comedy. Personally, it didn't feel like the animation is what would have made that story so strong. Rather, it's the situations the House Husband gets into, and the constant reverting of expectations. However, that can't be said for One Punch Man. Movement is necessary, and fights in this season looked flat. Movement was stiff, expressions were static, even the color grading felt off. Muddy, lifeless, dull characters who once bursted with energy and charm now stood around like a cardboard cutout. It was a hollow reflection of season 1, distorted in every way. Key moments that should have hit, like Garu's battles or the introduction of powerful new monsters, were completely undermined by lackluster visuals. This is One Punch Man, a show that is literally known for pushing comedic visuals and at times animation boundaries. Season 2 failed to raise the bar. This might be because the narrative was more complex, or maybe episodes having a lot of exposition made them feel flat. Regardless of the reason why it failed, it did, and it didn't live up to the expectations set up by the first season. There's a 4-year gap between the first 2 seasons, and in 2015, that was an eternity. In today's anime climate, that's kind of the norm. But back then, that was a long time to wait for a second season. However, in that time, the buzz for the show didn't die. If anything, it got louder. Fans were ready, the internet was ready, and waiting with blind faith that whatever came next would be worth a surprisingly long wait. However, I remembered when I saw the first red flag. I remember seeing the teaser trailer for the second season, and I saw Genos. The first thing I felt when I looked at this visual was disgust. Gone was the dynamic, slick, shiny cyborg, replaced by a dull, muddy metal that looked as much out of place as it did bad. When the show itself aired, I discovered that this was the style they went for every piece of metal in the anime. And there's a lot of metal in One Punch Man. Cyborgs are kind of in every single season, but it goes deeper than that. The energy was gone. The show didn't feel like a passion project anymore. It felt like a contract being fulfilled. Sure, the story arc was more complex, with the Monster Association build-up in the background and new characters like Garo taking center stage, but instead of hype, it bred boredom. The stakes felt unclear, and most people stopped talking about it online, unless it was negative. This was a show that once broke the internet. How could it come to this? Now, it's not even talked about. The biggest shift behind the scenes was obviously the studio change. Madhouse to JC staff. I think that JC just weren't built for this style of heavy action visuals. It's a demanding style. The showrunners didn't seem to understand the DNA of the first season. The timing, the irony, the exaggeration. Even the storytelling was weaker. And the result was a season that feels off. Scenes that linger a little too long. Fights that cut too quickly. Comedy with timing that is awkward. It doesn't feel like the same creative minds were steering the ship. And in truth, they weren't. Personally, me and my friends were not just disappointed. We were genuinely confused as to how this could happen. How could a show with this much success be handed off like a second-rate project? Like some seasonal isekai. The brand took a hit, not just because the story wasn't delivered in the right way, but because of the execution's carelessness. Season 2 genuinely has a good story. It focuses more on the world building, the Hero Association and the Monster Association. New S-class heroes. On paper, it's a natural evolution. Bigger threats, more characters, higher stakes. However, there is criticism to be had. Personally, I think side characters take up a large amount of the screen time. Exposition dumps are heavy, and Saitama's, the little heart of the series, is sidelined in a tournament arc. Best part of the story by far, mind you, but that's the closest we get to the first season. The show stopped being about what made it unique, and it tried to be like the battle anime it used to poke fun at. We can see this shift in shows that rely on satire. The biggest example of it is The Simpsons. The Simpsons became as a razor-sharp critique and satire of American family life, and the sitcoms that dominated TV at the time. It made fun of everything, poking fun at sitcom cliches, political absurdity, and the corporate influence through its industry. Its early seasons were clever and held a mirror to society, from education, religion, to capitalism. But over time, especially from the mid-2000s onwards, the show gradually shifted from satire to a self-parody. Instead of critiquing pop culture, it began to chase it, relying heavily on celebrity cameos, over-the-top plots, and meme-friendly moments. And its once grounded characters became exaggerated versions of themselves, and the show strayed, embodying the very tropes and shallowness it once mocked. I don't want the same to be true of One Punch Man, and I hope that season 2 was build up for a massive payoff, a payoff that will deliver not just through writing and story, but through visuals that this story deserves. Right now, my hopes are not high. The anime community has realistically stopped caring about One Punch Man. That's the scariest part, because it's not people like hating on something that kills a fandom. It's silence, the apathy, the sense that the magic is gone and the show won't improve. And until season 3 disproves that, One Punch Man won't be remembered for its amazing story and for what its anime could be, but instead a cautionary tale of unmet expectations. Season 3 is set to cover the Monster Association arc, which runs from chapter 86 to chapter 170 in the manga. In the manga, this arc is often praised as the peak of One Punch Man's storytelling. It's where the characters like Garou, Tornado, and even Saitama himself are pushed into the spotlight in ways that they haven't been before. The size, however, is a double-edged sword. Trying to squeeze that all in to the start of season 1 and season 2 might force production to cut corners, just like it did in season 2. It raises real concern. Can the arc survive another rushed adaptation, or will it suffer the same fate? But now, the damage to One Punch Man's reputation is undeniable. Its legacy right now is that of broken trust and shattered hype. There could be a silver lining though. It's not being led by a fresh studio. This is the same studio. They've got a chip on their shoulder. They've something to prove. Instead, JC are returning, even though that announcement was met with widespread criticism because of what happened with season 2. One Punch Man season 3 is an opportunity to win back its reputation, to prove the anime is more than a one-hit wonder. But if it fumbles this arc, this season, one of the manga's most beloved storylines, then it won't just disappoint. It will permanently destroy its brand. Season 1 was lightning in a bottle. Season 2 was a cautionary tale. Season 3, regardless of which way it goes, is the turning point.